So welcome. My name is Maggie Schuster, and I am the moderator for Know Before You Fly Your Drone. I just want to let everyone know that basically this program was an initiative with the North Central Texas Council of Governments. They put together a North Texas Unmanned Aircraft Systems Safety and Integration Task Force. This is the first task force that we're aware of in the area where we've combined both private sectors like aviation and UAS industry, academia, military, government, state, legal, all coming together talking about UAS. And one of the initiatives we wanted to do is put on a program where we educated the general public about flying safely and, just safe integration. And not only in the DFW region, but since now we have the opportunity for the Zoom platform, we can talk about it with everyone. And so I want to go ahead and start the program. Just let you guys know this is recorded. So if you have a friend or if you want to go back and look at it, you can look at the northtexasuas.com. And we'll have this program recorded and probably up in about 10 days. But we have had about 5 other workshops in the past, and you can go back and look at them, and there's some really great speakers. Some of them being GLIME education, talking about getting ready for your 107. And then there's also, there was one specifically on the new regulations and the new rulings. So anyway, so first things first, Jay McGibbon, he is the president of the Dallas Racing Drones League, and I'm so excited. I think that FPV specifically in racing and going fast is one of the most popular things. So Jay, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about this program?
Definitely. Yeah, so like Maggie said, my name's Jay. I started Dallas Drone Racing back in 2014. And for a while we were kind of nomads, but we learned quickly that to be an accepted sport, to be a sport that we want to proliferate and to spread, you want to follow all the rules and guidelines so that it's something that people want to bring to their location. So yeah, we learned real quick, and so I, having a background in the military and having a background in aviation, I kind of pulled from those and started a club and have managed to kind of turn my profession into the thing that I love to do. But with that, I'm going to share my screen here and just jump into my little presentation here. I'm kind of glad that I get to go first because we did a little tech check earlier and everybody else's looks way better than mine. So I think I kind of go through a stream of consciousness, and this outline here is a little bit of a result of that. But more on an introductory. I have been I mentioned I was in the Navy. I'm a licensed Part 107 pilot. I've been with Multi-GP, which is the drone racing league here in the US. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I've been affiliated with Multi-GP, running a chapter for them, running some tracks at their International Open. And then, Evan is going to talk about community-based organizations later, but we also learned that becoming a chartered club with the AMA was another area to make it possible for us to do the activities that we wanted to do. And then, as far as me being able to make it my profession, I've been able to join a company to make it possible for me to bring drone racing to schools and kids all over the United States. So everything up to this point has been really great and happy for me. But along with that, I really was happy to get this opportunity to kind of educate everyone and open the door to FPV and drone racing, and just, hopefully pique some interest levels for you to look into it further. Um, as you know, as you notice, you may notice I put a little disclaimer on here because if you follow the FAA and the news and current events and all of that, things are always or things are somewhat fluid. They can be changing uh, from day to day. And so as a person that might want to be involved in FPV or drone racing, you do need to educate yourself on where you can and cannot go. The worst thing for drones and for you is for you to go somewhere you're not supposed to be flying and then get in trouble. So that was another area that we learned, okay, if we want to do this safely and not get in trouble, we need to make sure that we follow all the guidelines. Um, Another reason that I wanted to kind of get this towards schools and get it to kids and that sort of thing is really, this meme is one of my favorite memes. It talks about all the possible things that you have to have some form of knowledge on to do drones, FPV racing, fixing them, repairing them. I mean, you are going to crash, and so being able to fix your drone is something that you definitely are going to want to be able to do. So I always throw this in here, but I'm going to go straight to FPV, the FAA, and CBOs. Again, like I said, Evan is going to talk about this later, but I know a lot of people have probably wondered, how are they getting away with FPV? They're supposed to be looking at their drone. They're supposed to be flying line of sight. What are they doing here? If you were to actually go and to the FAA's website and look under recreational flyers, I'm actually going to go to do that. It's going to talk
Yeah,
about
and Jay,
CBOs.
just real quick for the new viewers, can you tell us what FPV stands for?
Oh yeah, sure. FPV is first person view. So the drone has a camera and you are wearing goggles and you're actually in the cockpit of the drone. You are you're in it, flying it. And I'll actually talk about that a little bit more later because for some people, FPV is harder. And then for some people, FPV is easier. Me, myself, I went to FPV as quickly as possible. But it's kind of a case by case. But back to this, I really just wanted to highlight number 3 because in a recreational setting, which Dallas Drone Racing is not a business, we are a club, we are a chartered AMA club. We are doing this for fun. This is all recreational. And so if you look at number 3, it says that you can actually fly FPV if you have someone, a spotter, co-located right next to you. So when you come to a Dallas Drone Racing race, our whole flow, our whole dynamic is pretty much rotated around that rule right there. When someone is flying, the heat that is behind them is actually standing right behind them, spotting for them. And then when that heat goes into race, the group that's heat 3 would be behind them spotting. And we just rotate in like that. But I wanted to touch on this because, like I said, a lot of people are like, how are you doing FPV? You're supposed to be able to see your drone. If you look at number 2, follow safety guidelines of a FAA recognized community-based organization. That's a CBO. If you look at the note beneath it, it says they haven't officially recognized anyone yet. So this is where I talk about, or at least I mentioned that, things are in flux, things change. You should keep yourself aware of what's going on. But at least as far as how we're getting away with what we're doing, it has to do with basically those 2 things. Now, we are in Carrollton, and we are actually within the 5 miles of DFW. So we also had to get an LOA. Same thing, being able to get the proper authorizations, making sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do keeps you out of trouble. This is what we tell all of our people that want to come race. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, it keeps you out of trouble. Our LOA, and then also you can find us on Google Maps also. All you have to punch in is Dallas Drone Racing and it'll take you right to us. We race twice a month, and when we're not there, obviously other people can come fly, but because it is a safe place to be. But when it's race day, we're racing. So next thing, again, I want to mention you should educate yourself. Make sure you check where you're going, because in this right here, if you look, not all the parks in Dallas-Fort Worth allow RC flight. Nice thing is you can go to pretty much all of the municipalities and find rules on whether or not you can or cannot. Let's see if I can quickly find it. Motorized vehicles, that's not it. Where is it? RC somewhere. But basically, you should always go and check anywhere you're going to fly before you go fly there. If you're flying FPV, you should always take a buddy, because you need a spotter. And not only that, but it's safety as well. I mean, if you think about it, if you go by yourself, you're in your goggles, you have $1,000 worth of equipment sitting here right next to you. Anyone could walk up and run off with something before you really know about it. So having a person with you, having a spotter, not only puts you within following the rules, but it's a safe thing as well. So now I'm going to move into the leagues, because if you ever want to get into it, you're going to, hear about these things. You're going to need to look into these. And so therefore, we'll hit multi-GP first. Multi-GP is the biggest league. It is all over the United States. It's all over Europe. It's actually made its way almost over the entire globe. And the way that they function is they set up chapters that allow for local grassroots little groups to get started in the activity. They have all sorts of documentation. They have rules. They have regional series. They really have been the trendsetter in specifically racing activities. Dallas Drone Racing is a chapter of Multi-GP. If I was going to compare Multi-GP to something, I would probably call it like the minor leagues in baseball, or Busch League in NASCAR, or something along those leagues. It's the entry-level league into drone racing. And then as you progress, and as you get faster and you get better, then these next two leagues are going to probably start scouting you out. The DRL is the Drone Racing League. That's here in the United States. And that was televised by ESPN. It's been on MSNBC. It's been all over the place. DCL is the Drone Champions League, and that is over in Europe. And basically, they're about the same thing. So if you were to compare those would be the top level. That would be NASCAR. That would be Major League Baseball. That would be where you start making money. Here in
Jay,
Dallas.
I don't mean to interrupt, but for all those, just come back a little bit on, for those that don't know even what drone racing is it all about timing? Is it a track? Is it, just real quickly, I mean, this is really my first time. I've never gone and seen a live or even televised program. So do you mind just kind of starting with that? I mean, the leagues sound wonderful, and it sounds like it's that big. There's actually going to be money and prizes and things like that, and maybe even sponsorships. But can you just go back a little bit and tell us exactly what drone racing is?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's hard to put a pin on that, to be honest, because I mean, just like two kids in the backyard, I'm going to race to that tree. Are you faster? How many times can we race to that tree? I mean, there's a million different types of racing. When I sat down to put this together, there's so much information. It's hard for me to pinpoint one exact thing about racing. So I could probably talk for more than my allotted time for sure. Um, Racing and showing up to race. Well, so when you show up to race, we're going to go through a pilot briefing. We're going to talk about um, safety. We're going to talk about the challenges that you might run into, race formats. One of my favorites was lap count. A race lasts, it's very short. A race only lasts for 2 minutes. The batteries are lithium polymer, high discharge rocket ships. And so therefore, the race only lasts 2 minutes max on almost all races. Now, that's when we get into different types of racing. When you come to Dallas drone racing, more than likely we're going to be running either a lap count, which is the most laps you can accrue throughout the day. So one race is 2 minutes. Then you'll race several times throughout the day. However many laps you can get throughout the day would produce our winner. So that was like the first types of racing, just who can get the most laps. Then there was fastest consecutive. Guys started getting really fast. And so we started doing, all you got to do is string 3 laps together as fast as you can, and that'll place you. Then there's fastest single lap. There's many different formats, and we change it up. So it's difficult to say when you show up today, you're going to race this every single time. Same for different types of racing. There's individual racing where I'm going to show up and I'm going to race, or there's been team racing that has started to take off, which is anywhere from 3 to 4 pilots or racers up to 10. Back in April at Dallas Drone Racing at our home field, we did a 12-hour team race where they came and showed up and just flew lap after lap after lap. Actually, I will show you an example of it.
There's a certain strain of bacteria called Lactobacillus reuteri that will
we
help
gotta
you
get
grow
past
bigger
this.
balls. There was a study
Okay,
published.
skip that. And this, if you look at the timestamp, I mean, it's 11 hours, 54 minutes. So, it's crazy. They did this for 12 hours. And it's just the same track over and over and over again. If I mean, I can go into a little bit more detail on this. If you look at a racer's screen, a specific single one, this is how many can fly at a given time. The maximum number of people you can put in the air at a given time is 8. Due to frequency management. See, there's just so much to get into. Frequency management, you need your ham license so that you can legally and then knowledgeably navigate frequency bands and then place your racers in those frequency bands so that they have the best possible video. There's just so much information to cover. But in this particular type of racing, this is team racing, and all they're doing is just doing this one track over and over and over and over again until their battery dies, and then the next guy goes and he does it over and over and over again. So
Okay, so Jay, just real quick, what about, is there an age restriction? Is it just for men, women, girls, boys? I mean, when you talked about having a license, a ham license, do you have to be a certain age for that? Do you have to follow the FAA rules for, being a pilot, being 16? I just who actually participates in these races?
We have all age groups and all and girls and boys. Actually, Alex Vanover, who's based here in Dallas, he just turned 20, but he won DRL. Age restrictions, that sort of thing. I wouldn't say that so much. I don't know the age at which you have to get like your hobby license, like the FAA wants you to get to register your drone whenever you buy one, but it's a $5 hobby level registration. I'm not sure at what age.
I think it's 13.
Is
I
it?
think it's
Okay.
13, 10 or 13. Yeah.
So I mean, as far as racing goes, there's no restrictions. There are more males at the moment, but the females that do get into it actually reap bigger rewards because a lot of companies and businesses and that sort of thing are looking for ladies to help them support their products. And so although there's not as many ladies, the ones that do get in are usually swarmed by all the guys and all the companies. And I say that in jest, of course. But you know, as far as specific to racing, the formats, there's many formats, the types of racing, there's many types of racing. There's timing, how we do the timing. I mean, back a long time ago, we used to use transponders. Now we use peaks and valleys of amplitude of video output power. So, I mean,
Oh, so they have audio on the live stream from me, I'm told.
Say that again?
Maybe? I don't know. They're saying, well, no audio from the dude in red, but I'm wearing white over here. So, what's up? What's up, YouTube? If you can hear me.
Oh, that is your video. That's
Yeah,
actually
sorry.
your video talking. Yes. No worries.
wait.
I know. It sounded
Okay.
really neat. But I mean, I'm so glad that there is diversity in this, Jay. If basically, if you want to start in a program like this, the best, obviously, the best solution is getting a hold of a local team, a local league is what officially you call it. And, you know, start going out there and observing and seeing what's going on, who's, you know, what they're doing and how they're doing it and what kind of equipment they're using and how they can get involved. Do you have to be a member? Is there a membership fee? Do you have to be a member? No?
No. Again, I mean, because we're a club, we're mostly social media based. Our main avenue of communication is Facebook. If you go to Facebook and look for Dallas Drone Racing, we have a page and a group. That's where 99% of our communication happens because of the push notifications. We run 2 races a month, and we set those events up in Facebook and push that out to all our members. Our Facebook group has over 1,700 members. So we definitely have a big social media presence. Outside of Facebook, we do have a website where we put up all of our events, and actually where we talked about the fact that I'd be talking today. But then we're racing on June 12th is our next upcoming race in Carrollton, where we're going to fly LED props. We're actually have been encouraging everybody to deck out their quads with LEDs. I use a lot of different terms for drone, quad, drone, you know, we call them stretch quad. I mean, there's a million different, I use them interchangeably. I'm sorry if I confuse on that, but basically, June 12th, we're doing a night race with LEDs and LEDs in the props, and it's just going to be a big old spectacular light show that we're looking forward to. So you should definitely look us up and come out.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Thanks. And I guess I'm out of time actually. There's, like I said, there's a million things.
We still have about, let's see, we still have about 10 minutes, Jay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
so we have about 10 minutes. is there an entry fee to get involved? I mean, to actually race, is there an entry fee?
So when you show up to race, we're going to do a tech check. So there's some things you're going to need. You're going to need your hobby level registration from the FAA. We also want you to have a membership with the AMA for insurance. If you fly your drone into my head, I want to be able to do something about it. So we also have AMA. And then, of course, the city of Carrollton wants everybody to sign a waiver when they come to the field. So those are the first three things that you're going to encounter. Then when you come to race, we're going to do a tech check. We're going to make sure that your drone's on the right channel, on the right power output, and that your fail-safe is set properly. We don't want anybody's drones flying away. As far as a fee, we do a $10 entry fee to race. That pays for our timing. Everything has a monthly fee. Our timing service has a monthly fee. We stream our races online. That has a monthly fee. So there's a $10 fee to race. When we race, we do a pilot briefing where we go over the specifics and then we go over the format. And I think that's, like I said, it's specifically to racing to show up. I mean, we also, depending on the track, I'm going to jump up to something because it ties in. Where was it? Getting started. Components, remote. See, I have just way too much information on here. Getting started. 5-inch drone racing is probably not a good entry level because you're flying a lawnmower basically, and they go super duper fast. If you really want to get into drone racing or start to look into it, the first things you're going to want to look at is like a simulator or the micros, the small indoor tiny whoops. They're cheaper. There's less repairs. When you hit something, you're not going as fast, not as much inertia. So you're not going to be repairing as much. FPV has a fairly steep learning curve. So, you really got to take baby steps and not get discouraged because these are not DJI. Maggie asked me a while back, are these just like everybody else's drones? And they're not. DJI, who has Phantoms and Mavics and all these others that have automated assisted leveling, return to home. Race drones don't have any of that. They're stripped down Ferraris that can only do a minimal amount of auto level. So it really is a very different beast than what some people are used to. And so, you want to go into it knowing what you're getting into. The DJI just came out with their version of an FPV drone. But I've heard great things about it, but it's not exactly for racing. The only downside that I've heard from it really is that it's somewhat delicate. It's made of plastic and it can break fairly easily.
Yeah, that, and it's hard to get parts right now. So
Right.
if you do crash, then you're without a drone till DJI can catch up. I mean, it's got a fantastic, I think the market right now for the DJI FPV is more for the photography and just giving the feeling of flying like a bird. I mean, that's kind of, a general for the general public. I know that speed is really, I mean, people are really talking about it because this is the first time they've been introduced to these high level speed, like you said, Ferraris that can fly, but also can take some amazing video recordings. So I agree. I think that when it comes down to using equipment for racing, it is a different beast, and that you have to not only, gradually get your skill level up on flying, but that also includes your repairs and knowing how to repair your bird, correct?
Correct. And I mean, that's one of those things that you can make that decision. Do you want to be the one that has to fix all your stuff, or do you want to go the other route? Because, you know, maybe a positive on the DJI side is you could ship it away and have somebody else fix it for you if you're okay with that. A lot of us in the racing, you know, we want the instant gratification. We want to be able to fix whatever's problem and get back in the air. And so it really is something that you want to give some thought to before you go out and start buying stuff, because, you know, once you start getting into goggles and other components, it can get somewhat expensive. So from an entry level type position, you know, you really want to look into what you might want to use it for. You know, another interesting thing about the DJI FPV drone is you would, you know, assume that it would be geared towards photography, but I've also heard that the props are in the view of the video. So you're actually going to have to wind up cropping out your video if you intend to use it for that. So it really is, there's a million different types of drones. You know, I put on here types of frames, but I mean, you know, they all have little niche aspects, and they all somewhat funnel up into the activity of drone racing, because any of us that have worked with the drones from a professional standpoint, they're great tools, but they're not maybe so much play toys. And what I've attempted to do is turn a tool into a play toy and try and keep people engaged and actively doing these types of things on an ongoing basis.
I think that's fantastic, Jay. And I think that your dedication really shows just with what you've talked about today. If there was a takeaway for the audience, can you kind of, you know, emphasize what you really want to express today? And also, just so everyone can contact you, how is the best way? Is it Facebook contacting you, emailing you, so that if they want to get involved? It sounds like you've done a really good job on your marketing. So when you do have activities, there's easy access to it. So just kind of, we got about 4 or 5 minutes. Just kind of give us just a roundabout the presentation takeaway of what you really want to emphasize to the audience. That would be wonderful, because I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to coming out and seeing your activities now, especially that LED one. I mean, I think that that's spectacular.
Oh yeah, sure. As far as the takeaway goes, I would just highly encourage people to get out and try it. Usually what I see is people are somewhat apprehensive, or they hesitate, or are a little hesitant to dive into something like this. They're not sure, they're afraid they're going to break something. You know, you just kind of got to dive into it with both feet and really just to give it a shot. And of course, come out, because, you know, it is a really laid back community. We're all there for fun. And so we're real open and real receptive to others coming and checking it out. Not to mention, you know, we like to show off our stuff, seeing as how, you know, we've kind of built it. And if that's something that you know appeals to you, definitely look into it, because being able to fix things, build things, really opens up so many doorways to other activities. And
Great
I think,
careers. I mean, you know, if you could, children excited about drone racing and they learn all those bases, like you talked about, the principles, I mean, that opens up a door to a great career, because obviously we're here talking about UAS, unmanned air systems, because this is our future today, and even going to be more present. I mean, actually more present in the future. So It sounds wonderful. I'm so excited about it, and the fact that now that the COVID is kind of slowing down, we can be outside, more activities. Families are looking to do more activities outside, and I think this is a fantastic, exciting program to be able to witness and see. So I really appreciate it, and I want to encourage everyone that's listening today to go ahead and put your questions. We are going to be addressing questions at the end of this program too. So if you have questions for Jay, how, again, is it Facebook is the best way of reaching out to you, or where would you prefer people to contact you?
Yeah, Facebook's probably the best way.
Okay.
Like I said, that's where I spend probably way more time than I should. So yeah, Facebook or DallasDroneRacing.com, or like I said, also onpoint.com. I work there as well. So you can reach me in any of those places, and feel free to do so.
Well, thank you so much. And again, I want to encourage the audience to ask questions, contact Jay. Our next speaker, speaking of exciting programs, is Kyle Sanders. I met Kyle through, actually, I don't know if you guys have heard of Clubhouse, but I learned about his exciting program called UAS Drone Soccer League, and it's been really big in Korea, and now Kyle's brought it over here. He's based in Colorado, but it sounds pretty exciting. Kyle, welcome to the platform. I appreciate it. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the program?
Absolutely.
I'm already excited about drone racing, so get me excited about soccer, and I'm in.
Well, I'm so glad they went first, because that's gonna really help provide some background into what we're doing. I'm Major Kyle Sanders, former Air Force combat pilot and Air Force Academy instructor. And aerospace education is my passion. I have a master's in education, and I've been working on aviation programs with the Wings Over the Rockies Air and Space Museum in Denver. So Colorado is very excited about this new sport, and I can just kind of launch into my presentation if that's all right with you, Maggie.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Can everybody see my screen? Oh, you are mute there, Maggie.
Oh, sorry. I was to say this is the first time I think a lot of people have even heard of drone soccer. So I think
Right.
we're real excited about hearing what it's all about.
Yeah. So we're Drone Sports LLC. We're an ed tech robotics company. We are geographically diverse, but we're launching our test program in Colorado. We've been working with schools since January to really ease that learning and adoption curve. Like our previous guest said, it is a very steep learning curve to get into drones, and we set out to minimize that difficulty for educators and students. What we do is we gamify aerospace education. We know from experience that if you can hook a student with the thrill of flight and team competition, they don't realize how much they're learning. And we're doing this through our flagship program of US Drone Soccer. Drone soccer is the next evolution of drone sports after drone racing. It's a sport where students have to build, program, fly, and repair those high performance racing drones for competition. In my hand here, I have a drone soccer ball that students build from scratch, program, and then have to learn to repair and upgrade with their team. This facilitates classroom learning in the STEM or IT class, but also schools form after-school teams that compete head-to-head in league play, just like a traditional sport. You have your Friday night lights, drone soccer game. The competition itself is an exciting full contact sport. These drones have a protective exoskeleton, and they're designed to collide with the other team. We all know that drone technology is an explosive consumer market with surprising applications in all sorts of industries. Our main customers here are the school districts, who are all trying to access drone education, but have run into all the challenges that were mentioned previously. high expense, high difficulty, and a lot of FAA restrictions that they're very anxious about. What we've heard over and over is we don't need to buy more drones. They need an easy to adopt program with the support for educators and the competition and teamwork of traditional sports. Our leadership team comes from drone racing and professional aviation. David Roberts, our founder, is the former president of Multi-GP, and he led the US drone racing team to several world championships and events. Bill Almer has hosted high-level drone racing events, but he also designs the arcade equipment you've played with at Dave & Buster's. And then I come from aerospace education for the Air Force. At a high level, it's been a pursuit of mine for the last 10 years. So we're really trying to build out this concept. Drone soccer first came out of South Korea. It got adopted nationally there, so they have hundreds of teams. And then it began spreading to Japan and across Europe. And so as this has spread, we saw an opportunity to bring it to North America. But more than just creating a new sport, we saw a way to inspire thousands of future astronauts at the same time. Let's see if this will play for us. So this is our first academic tournament that we held at Wings Over the Rockies in Denver. These students have been practicing from basically January, February on, where they built this as a class and put together a team. The game itself is played in this 10-foot by 20-foot netted enclosure. So it is safe, it answers all the FAA restrictions, and you can see the two goals on either end. If you're thinking to yourself, you Harry Potter fans, that this looks like Quidditch, that's because it does look a lot like Quidditch. But seeing this student competition really validated our assumptions about what this sport would be. I'm not exaggerating to say that teachers had tears in their eyes saying they've never seen students more engaged or excited about engineering. If there's anyone here who's not familiar with where high schools are at, high schools are now providing career and technical education where students are graduating in high school with an associate's degree and professional licenses in welding, in manufacturing, in aircraft maintenance. So they want real career training in high school. Robotics competitions have been around for about 30 years. These two companies, First and Vex, are the leaders in that. They bring in about $100 million a year in combined revenue for their events. But most importantly, there are 1 million students around the world competing in robotics. But these events haven't fundamentally changed since 1992. And aerial drones and this high-paced, fast-paced world of aerospace is the future. We just landed a flying drone on another planet for the first time last month. So students know that drones are the future and they're really excited to get into it. What we're trying to do is provide that educational leadership with the professional training and the support for schools who may be intimidated by drones, to pair them up with drone instructors to support them through the semester. We're also working with Hydra FPV. They're a leader in drone racing. So our league management software builds directly into drone racing and drone racing events. So students who can get on the on-ramp with our drones can then grow into getting their 107 license, competing in drone racing events, moving into collegiate design teams. I know we're talking about a design challenge next. And so we see this as being the on-ramp to all these opportunities at the collegiate and international level, all the way to the World Cup. And then, of course, we are designing and pushing the technology forward to allow students to really engage with this. And the key here is that drones can be expensive. DJI is incredibly expensive, and we're trying to make these as affordable and durable as possible for teachers and students. I showed you guys our drone soccer ball. You might see some videos out of Japan and South Korea where they're playing with big beach ball sized drones. That's the 40 centimeter size. You need basically a basketball court arena built for that. But we're bringing this to North America at a smaller 20 centimeter size. This is still approved by international rules. But this is something that fits inside the classroom. It's something every school can adopt, every venue can adopt and fit this arena there. So it's really, really good for accessibility of drone sports. And everything on it is completely repairable with a single tool. During competition, these drones get their battle damage, and students between each round have to run over to their table and as a team repair those drones and get them airworthy again in time for the next round to start. So it's a little bit like NASCAR in that respect. We also have automated goals that can track which drone is flying through, make sure it's the correct goal scoring drone, and automatically keep score and really have a hands-off scoring system for leagues. And we're selling these as a comprehensive kit with everything schools need, from the tools to the chargers to, all inclusive, to help them adopt and get kids engaged. Colorado is the site of our first test league. These 3 test high schools were early spring. We're now up to closing in on a dozen schools who want to adopt and form this first league. Wings Over the Rockies Air and Space Museum has been helping to lead the way there. We're running summer training camps for 5 weeks this summer. We just finished our first summer camp yesterday, where the students in 4 days learned to fly, built it, programmed it, practiced as a team, and then competed in a mini tournament. And they did incredible after just 4 days with this technology. So really good to see their growth in such a short amount of time. We've done exhibitions at the Space Foundation headquarters. We have a permanent arena in Denver, and we have another permanent arena at the Mall of America in Minneapolis. We are looking for other locations around the country who are willing to invest in an arena in a profit sharing arrangement. So we partner with nonprofits, that could be museums, community organizations, school systems, who have a space to put in a 10 by 20 foot arena. And just like ice hockey or bowling, that is really that convening hub for the community to come engage with this. So if there's anybody there in North Texas, we would love to work with you and talk to you about how this can support youth outreach programs.
We will definitely get you on the program where you can do a presentation for the COG here. I would think that would be great. Just I don't know, I saw that you talked about high school. Is there a certain age that you start? And I noticed that there were 3 team members for each team. Is that consistent?
So you'd be surprised at how young these students are getting engaged with this kind of stuff. We're targeting grades 6 through 12. So that's about ages 12 to 17 for this introductory size. We are working with collegiate drone programs where they will custom design those larger 40 centimeter sizes to compete. So there is a pathway for students to continue to grow. A team is a minimum of 6 students. We can play 3-on-3 all the way up to 5-on-5. And so that minimum team of 6 means they can scrimmage against each other 3-on-3 and prepare for those bigger games outside of the school. So did that answer your question?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I love the fact that, boys and girls alike. Do you find that there's more interest with the boys? I mean, how do you engage girls to get involved in this too?
Oh, I am smashing gender stereotypes. So there's an issue. When girls pursue technical careers, there is a drop-off in enrollment after high school. So we see equal enthusiasm from middle and high school students, and then we're losing them when they go to select what they want to do in college. A lot of that is representation. If they don't see women doing it, they don't believe they can. That's a huge problem in aviation, where I think only 8% of airline pilots are women. So this is
6% for UAS.
Right.
And I think that's how we met, actually, when I did a room on girls in STEAM. trying, how do we encourage girls to get involved? But I think that this, again, is a program that once they see more and more girls get involved and have fun and learn something at the same time, and then the knowledge of that this could be an amazing career. I mean, how many people would love to have a career that they just are so passionate about? So
and you bring them in on a team, you give them the mentorship. I went to space camp as a kid, and then I ended up getting a space system engineering degree and becoming a pilot. And now I'm inspiring students that way too. It's, that little bit of mentorship at a young age can really, give them that encouragement to pursue something. We know that this is a high demand career field, that in high school, they get their 107, the average pay is at least $30 an hour to go do videography. So it's something they could immediately begin investing in as a young career, first career almost. As for getting women and underserved students, those grants I mentioned on a previous page, we've had grants for school systems in underserved districts to bring in students who would never access this. And then we're working with career and technical education. There's federal and state funds set aside for career training. And so schools so far haven't paid a penny for this because it is paid for by state and federal career preparedness funds. So it's a way to get drones into school systems who need it, students who need to see something like this. And then good representation is important. Our summer camps, we have young licensed drone pilots. We have certified flight instructors engaging with these students who are from all backgrounds and women, to show them like, yes, there is room on this team for you. And I think that's super important as you grow an organization, to make sure you're including all those local communities in it.
And I don't mean to interrupt, your flow of your presentation.
Oh, yeah.
But I kind of, we've got about 9 minutes, and Kyle, I really want to ask you and have you express, where do we start? Like, if we want, here in Texas, we want a program like this, how do we start it? Where do we go? And you were mentioning about the camps. How can we get camps? And does it cost anything for the students to go to camp? And again, it sounds like there's a lot of opportunities. It's just a matter of knowing how.
Well, and it, begins and ends with some philanthropic funding. I'm at my last slide here. So this is an example of an opportunity. We're partnered with the Rocky Mountain Sports Corp. They're affiliated with the Olympics Committee here in town. They have put on the Rocky Mountain State Games for the last 30 years, which is the Olympics of Colorado. And this is the first time an esport has been a part of that event. So by partnering with that nonprofit, we are raising or seeking sponsorships for student teams. We've already got $10,000 in sponsorships, one to support the Boys and Girls Club of Colorado Springs, one to support a community service organization for high-risk teens. And we're searching for others, but basically pairing them up with drone instructors and mentors to prepare them for the state games. And then after the state games, that equipment is being donated to nonprofits and schools to continue growing their programs. To answer your question, what you need first is an organization, usually a nonprofit who wants to be that leadership administrative role for growing that local league. And then second, you need a place to put an arena. The total investment, for example, at Wings Over the Rockies, they invested $20,000 in a fleet of drones and the professional arena itself. And they're expecting to earn about $50,000 this year to support that program. So we have a revenue sharing with all of our nonprofit partners, that all the equipment sales that come through, they get affiliate sales. They keep almost all of the local training services that they do for teachers and summer camps. And so right now we're expecting to have somewhere between 70 and 100 students in our summer camps this summer. So it's a great way to do the outreach, bring new students into technology, then also support your local nonprofit.
Yeah, and it sounds like, it could be a parent that's interested in getting their child involved in this. It could be a teacher that wants to get the program into their schools. It could be an industry, a company that needs the workforce and the skill sets for the future. And so they're wanting to get involved. And of course, there is the local, state, and federal government that, again, the education, even if it's just about, hey, if you're doing this recreational and you never get into the industry, at least what about the responsibilities and the skill set and being a team player. And we could go on and on. And speaking of going on and on, is there any questions from the audience that we can ask Kyle real quick? I love it. It's so cool. The LED, look at the lights on that. That is so neat. I love it. And you said in 4 days in camp, they actually built these things, or they were already built?
This is one that our summer campers built themselves.
Oh my gosh.
From parts. They put it all together, programmed it, customized it to their liking. This is a great on-ramp. We're seeing those other robotics
absolutely.
Programs, looking for drone soccer as a way to engage the new students who are intimidated by robotics. It's a fun team sport, and everything here is open source technology. So students can literally write their own flight controller software in C++ if they want to. Everything on here could be manufactured in a high school engineering course with either 3D printer, CNC machine. So there's 3D modeling. There's all sorts of skills that students can use to build and customize their own drones. And then I'll show you guys real quick who aren't familiar with FPV, what that open source flight software looks like. So this is Betaflight, which drone racing utilizes, but you can see that it is in real time telling me everything this flight controller is doing and thinking. And I can really help students get under the hood of the technology to control every aspect of this. So if we come down to here, I can control the throttle curves and the performance of the drone, how responsive it is, how it handles hitting another drone or hitting the net. So there's a lot that they can do, even coming in here and typing the command line themselves and programming this like an old school MS-DOS kind of approach. So it has applications in IT, cybersecurity, as well as your science and engineering programs. So
it looks like, Kyle, one of our audience has asked, is any inroads to Colorado? Let's see, or Canada, excuse me, any inroads into Canada? I'm a professor at a Canadian aviation college.
Yeah, so we are working with Project Safe Canada. They provide drone education across Canada, and especially working with Indigenous tribes. So they are getting a test arena and equipment to begin showing, organizations in Canada how this works. So if you have any interest in either hosting an arena or doing this with students, we absolutely have a plan for supporting Canadian programs.
That's fantastic. And then the other question is, I love the simplicity of the drone, but I wish there was something in Texas to go to visit. That's just from David Warner.
So we're looking for these locations. We have right now 6 locations in the US that we're looking at opening in the fall. If there is, like I mentioned, a nonprofit that wants to help support this and fundraise for it, and a location to put an arena, that's all we need, and we could begin growing the program this summer. So
we've got another minute. So is there a takeaway that you would like everyone? I mean, again, this drone racing, just it's like another level with the drone soccer. And so if there's anybody that wants to get started, they just contact you. Will you put your information in the chat, Kyle? Because I know that that's specifically for Jay and Kyle. If you put your contact in there, also to let the audience know that we on our northtexasuas.com website will have contact information. And even though, like in Texas, we don't have a program like this yet, I understand that you have a website too, where you can start seeing more and more competitions, correct? So that they can get a real feel for what it's about.
Exactly. You go to dronesoccer.us and you can learn all about our program. What I will say is that anyone who has an interest in this, drive up to Colorado Springs. It's only like 4 or 5 hours. Drive up to Colorado Springs on
We're like
July-
13, but yeah, go ahead.
Are you in South Texas?
Dallas, Fort Worth. I mean, I think maybe it
It's
is
not
Dallas.
that bad. But come on up to Colorado Springs on July 31st and actually
Okay.
compete in the state games. We'll get you some drone equipment. You can practice and try to compete. We have under 17 and adult categories.
sounds
But
great.
it'd be great if any organizations in Texas want to sponsor a team and travel up and compete.
Well, we'll definitely have both you and Jay on our because once a month the North Texas UAS Safety Integration Committee Task Force, whatever, we have a platform where you can talk to the region here, and that would be a great way of promoting it. And speaking of promoting in competitions, our next, thank you so much, Kyle. I really appreciate it. And stick around because I know there's going to be questions later on. But Sharon Rossmark is here with Women in Drones. We love her. She's here with us every month, and she brings on such an interesting interview with one of our presenters. And today, Ron Olson from Bell Competitions is here. So Sharon, thank you so much for joining us. And Ron, I'd love you to start and talk about a little bit about what we're doing here locally in competitions with drones.
Well, thank you, Maggie, so much. And can you
Sure.
hear me okay?
Yes,
Great.
perfect. Yes.
And can you see my screen?
And we can see your screen too. And the girls on the left, I love seeing that representation.
Well, great. Well, I have the honor of and the pleasure of introducing you all to an awesome program. So first, let me thank Jay and Kyle for their insights into their great work and their organizations in the drone sports arena. And now we're going to just take a little bit different twist in terms of a competitive approach. And I have the honor and privilege of having a fireside chat with Ron Olson today from Bell. Ron, are you there?
I'm here.
Great. Well, welcome, Ron, and thank you so much for your time. So, Ron, given your extensive career at Bell, and before we start our conversation, please take a moment to share a bit about your career and your background.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sharon. So yeah, my name is Ron Olson. I am a senior tech fellow with Bell, which most of you probably know used to be called Bell Helicopter. I'll touch on that a little bit later as to why we changed our name to just being Bell. I've been there for 36 years, gotten to do a lot of cool things, helping to design everything from a tail rotor to helicopters to currently unmanned vehicles. My background is really in fluid and mechanical systems and actuation systems. But recently I've taken on this role of a tech fellow and really work with the company on future strategies, long-term strategies and recruiting. And so it's been a great run. Little personal side, been married to my favorite wife for 42 years this coming Wednesday. So I'm hoping she sticks with me for another 40 years. We raised 7 kids. They're all grown and gone and pursuing their own careers. But that's kind of what opened up kind of an opportunity and time for me to pursue another round of engagement with kids. And really kind of connected that with this initiative that we've done over the last 5 years to start the Bell Vertical Robotics Competition, which we'll talk a little bit about.
Well, thank you, and congratulations on 42 years. That's key. So thank you and congratulations. So and moving on, when you and I chatted about this session, I've learned a lot from you about Bell's background, but you shared the extensive and deep history of Bell in supporting STEM. So please share with our audience a bit of background associated with the Bell efforts to inspire students to engage in STEM.
Sure. This is one of my favorite charts because it shows the heritage that we have with Bell. So way back in 1946, our founding father, Larry Bell, knew the power of engaging high schoolers. So this was a picture of Burgard High School in upstate New York. vocational high school, which was today would be a CTE high school, that he donated one of these Model 47 helicopters to really inspire the kids to get into that realm, to be everything from learning about maintenance and design and flight testing. So we've carried on that through the years, and just kind of showing there the letter from our current CEO, Mitch Schneider, who just kind of gave this letter with our kit as we handed it out this year, just telling the kids how much he likes what we're doing, and he's an engineer himself, so he wants to carry on this tradition in what we're doing.
Well, that's great. And, you know, the other thing that I learned in speaking with you about this program is, trying to change my slide here. Here we go. There we go. Is that in the last 5 years, the program has actually evolved, and that you really started with something called First Robotics, and you made this transition. So tell us about the transition and what you're doing today.
I will do that. I want to just mention that what Kyle shared just before me was really cool to hear. I think we're in lockstep on our perspectives of what we're trying to do. But yeah, for decades, Bell has been involved with First Robotics. I've been involved with mentoring the kids there. You can kind of see the picture back in 2012, that we helped this team go to nationals. And it's just a great competition, which teaches the kids a whole lot of things. But the problem is that it's all horizontal, it's all on the ground. And it was about 5 years ago that our CEO, Mitch Schneider, kind of changed direction for Bell and said, we're not just Bell Helicopter, we're going to start building unmanned vehicles, because there's going to be a lot of missions that will be able to be completed with unmanned vehicles and not manned helicopters. So we dropped the helicopter name, and really we're a technology company. And with that, we had the idea of, hey, why not create a very similar competition as First Robotics, but put it in the vertical realm. So that's what we started 5 years ago. And I think my next chart actually gives a little bit of background as to how we've grown through these years.
Yeah, and before we go on to the next chart, as Maggie's pointed out, that picture there in the lower right demonstrates the point that you all have some girls involved. So can you tell us what type of participation you're seeing from females?
I will, and that's been really a key part of what we're trying to do, as everybody has a challenge to try to grow more participation from females in the engineering realm and manufacturing. So we've been excited. The Young Women's Leadership Academy out of Fort Worth is what's represented here. I believe they took third place back in 2019. We've got another group called Black Girls Drone, which I believe you've had them online here as well. So they're participating this year, and we've really seen a pretty significant amount of females in our teams. I'm guessing around 30% from what we have registered this round. So we're excited about that.
Well, that's great. 30% is a great number. I mean, that's a lot higher than a lot of other organizations in terms of their engagement. So kudos to you all for being proactive in reaching out to that Leadership Academy and getting more girls involved. So as you mentioned, the next chart here really starts looking at the growth plan that you have, and that when I look at it, I mean, I see aggressive acceleration in the initiative. What's driving the expansion?
So really, I think it's a lot of what Kyle mentioned earlier. We've just found that, aerial flight is something that's really fascinating to kids. We're pursuing air taxi designs for the future. A lot of new technology. It's almost like the space age that was, way back in the 60s. There's a new realm of interest in aerial flight. So it was interesting when we actually connected with First Robotics 5 years ago and said, hey, we don't want to, create something that you're going to go pursue. And Dean Kamen is still very adamant about staying with what they've done. It's a proven competition, but they were very gracious to kind of say, hey, we'll help you develop this any way we can. So we took it on as as our own initiative, and we've just found that a lot of interest, both in the Texas area, and now we've expanded outside of Texas. You can kind of see our plan to continue kind of doubling each year.
Well, you mentioned something just a moment ago in terms of the amount of interest from kids. One of the things, and when we're working with educators, that we tell them, if you want to get a kid's attention in a classroom, you launch a drone and you immediately get their attention. So I'm glad to see that it's actually literally taken off in other areas also. So that's great. And then when I look at this slide, in terms of your partnerships and your sponsorships, you have a very impressive list. Tell us about the sponsorship program in case we've got some members of our audience out there that's interested in maybe getting involved.
Sure. So yeah, the top row really is just the ones that we are in a working relationship with. So obviously Bell's a founding sponsor. REC, we just connected up with, and they have been an incredible partnership. They took on all the logistics of doing the registrations and the event operations. For the first 3 years, I was trying to do that on my own, and I wanted to make sure I had another 40 years with my wife. So we found someone to take on those all that administrative content. Drone Blocks is a company down in Austin. They have just been really fantastic to work with. They have been doing the education manuals for us this year, but they also have a really cool block coding capability for drone applications. And we're going to be building that into future competitions. And then actually Rob Elwood from Drobot's company, he was the guy I called 5 years ago when I wanted to start this up, and I had no idea what to do with drones and doing a competition. And Rob and I have teamed up for these past 5 years, and he's been great, providing guidance and creative content for the competitions. So then our sponsors, Microsoft is probably the one we're most excited about. They are very engaged, both financially, but also with technology that they want to add to the competition going forward. BNSF, if you know, they've got a big drone fleet for their operations, so they're a sponsor. Hillwood obviously is a local company that they've done a lot of drone flying in their areas, and they support this. And then Venom actually donated all of the batteries for the competition this year. So they've been a great supporter.
Well, it sounds like you're the person to contact if someone is interested in participating as a partner or a sponsor, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Well, we'll drop your contact information in the chat box before we close out today. So
Okay.
let's talk about the overall program itself in terms of the purpose and really what the kids can expect to get out of. So what are you trying to achieve in the competition?
So these have been our 6 tenets for the last 5 years, but I won't go through all the details. But again, Kyle hit on so many of these that are just critical for a competition. Like he said, the best way to teach students is to do something fun, and they don't realize that they're learning everything that they are. But that's our goal. So the first bullet is really the most important, the design experience. So we're really focused on a complete design experience where they have to conceptualize something, design it, build it, 3D print it, build it, fly it, crash it, redesign, rebuild, refly. So that's really our biggest goal. And all these other bullets really kind of tie into that one cycle of learning experience. And then
I'm sorry, go ahead.
the fun is the biggest part too, that really gets the students engaged.
So when I look at the program, it looks very comprehensive, which I love. And I like all the elements. And as you said, it aligns with what some of the points that Kyle mentioned. What's the timeline for this? And tell me about the teamwork that's involved for the students.
Sure, and I'll hit on that a little bit at the very end, but basically it's again, very similar to FIRST Robotics. So there's teams, a school puts together a team. The guidelines are from anywhere from 8, they have to have at least 8 students in the team, as much as 12. We reveal the competition every year at a kickoff event. And then they have anywhere from 8 to 9 weeks to take the drone kit that we provide. So they register. The current registration fee is $4,000, but that covers their whole kit, both the aerial kit, and there's some ground-based content that goes with that. And then it provides them, entrance into all the competitions. So with those 9 weeks, they have to fully assemble the kit to get it to a state where they can fly it. And then they have to start modifying that basic kit to add on all the extra content that's required to be able to achieve the challenge on that given, on any given year for the competition.
And you mentioned there's a $4,000 fee, is that correct?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
is that paid by sponsors, or are there grants available to cover that fee?
So we're working on that right now. It's paid for by the schools, but we found that a lot of the schools, as was mentioned earlier by the previous discussion, there is a lot of grants out there that schools can get. One of the ones that's really kind of boosted our competition locally is the NCTX consortium of 12 different ISDs in the DFW, in the Fort Worth area, which got a very large grant from the Texas Education, the TEC. So they have provided a lot of funding for like 25 schools to participate in the competition.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's dive into the type of challenges that are presented. Let's start with going back, because I know 2020 was a wash, but pre-pandemic, talk about the competitions from 2019.
Sure. Yep. So this is a picture of the way the layout was in 2019. I would say each year we're trying to create a competition that's very relevant to what we are doing at Bell and what we are pursuing. So we have been designing our own air taxi, the Nexus. You might have seen that in the news, but back in 2019, we were right at the kickoff of that. And so we created an air taxi challenge, which basically is a scenario where the drone turns into a taxi, and we used the little Spiro minis to represent people, and they had to load on to the drone, and then we flew them off to a work scenario, and then they had to get off of the drone, and then they bumped golf balls down a maze, and that that was representing them delivering packages at a delivery service. And then we had a food delivery challenge where they had to drop off food packages to the tops of buildings. And that you can maybe post that video. There's a great 2-minute video that you all can watch that kind of shows the whole competition going on.
Yeah, we'll definitely copy and paste that into the chat as soon as we're done. And Maggie, let me just pause. Do we have any questions at this point? Otherwise, we'll keep going.
There's no questions. Again, I was fortunate to witness this competition, and it was so exciting to see these kids engaged and really taking pride on their accomplishments. So I definitely think it's wonderful. So go ahead, Sharon. We're good with time. It's only 11:18.
Okay, great. So Ron, in looking forward, I know that the spring is behind us in terms of that competition, but tell us what this year's challenges are going to be for the students, and then we'll talk about phase 2, which is coming up.
Will do. So we just finished up phase 1. So we had to, and this won't be our normal cadence. We did this because of kind of lingering COVID impacts where we knew we couldn't have an in-person event this spring. So we decided to start things off with a phase 1, which was basically the teams received the basic kit and they assembled it and they flew it and they had to document that. But they have no idea yet what the specific competition challenge will be. That won't be revealed until September 25th, where we will finally have an in-person event, and all the teams will come together, and we will reveal kind of an animation video that describes what they have to do to modify the drone to do this search and rescue challenge. We also are adding ground-based units that they'll be interacting with, and they will be getting that kit at September 25th, and then they'll have to assemble that and kind of interact that with the drone. And beyond that, I can't reveal any more specific.
Okay. But basically, that's what starts the 8-week program in terms of the kids getting involved in executing
Exactly.
on the challenges. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And then speaking of the schools, you've already have an impressive list of schools, primarily around Texas, but it shows now that you're starting to expand beyond Texas and in terms of a few other states.
We have, and we are so excited about this. We have a total of 51 teams. Some of them are multiple teams within one school. Yeah, and we've expanded to Michigan, Virginia, Louisiana. I think Ohio also was right a last minute addition. But that's what we were hoping for, and a little history on that. So Blacksburg, Virginia actually was the team that took first place back in 2019, and they're coming back hoping to win it again. But we're hoping we get some good Texas teams that'll give them a run for the money. So yeah, we've got a really good variety of schools. And like I mentioned earlier, we've got Black Girls Drone, which is really not a school team. It's kind of a club.
Right.
Other different schools. And we're excited about that.
Well, that's great. And then I think you touched upon this a little bit, but if you might want to share a little bit more details about the September competition.
Yeah, so this, I did touch about this a little bit, but we will reveal a lot more specifics. Obviously, the game manual will be handed out on the 25th. But like I said, we'll be adding ground-based robots that will be kind of interaction for the search and rescue. They will have to modify quite a bit. This shows a little bit of add-ons to the kit that we currently gave to them. They have to design rotor guards, which is really a challenging task. It's amazing how much those guards impact the aerodynamics of the prop and the lift capability. So we actually had that part of our senior design project for phase 1, and we had some really cool submittals on design scenarios. But they'll add that, they'll add extra cameras, an extra computer that really kind of gives them capability for position hold in a GPS denied environment. So that's one of the biggest challenges on doing this competition is it's always going to be indoor. It's always inside of a netted cage, which is critical for safety and just to be able to run a competition with a big audience. But also, you know, we just see that that's something that needs to be able to use to have kind of a competition scenario like that, where we can bring them in, they do the flight, and then they go out, and then the next team comes in and takes on the competition. But
Well, as I look at I'm sorry, let me just jump in for a moment. As I look at the detail here around the fabrication that they have to do, what type of coaching or assistance are provided to the students? And is that provided at their local schools, or does your program provide coaches for them? I mean, this seems pretty sophisticated for students.
it is. And so that's another thing that we have engaged with at Bell. So we think have about 25 to 30 mentors that we had volunteered at Bell, and we provided them for the phase 1. A lot of that was virtual, but in the fall, they'll be on site. I know Texas Instruments, Microsoft, they are all very engaged on providing mentors to the teams. And typically the teams, the high-end teams that are out there that have been doing FIRST Robotics, they have a backing of mentorships, you know, from those competitions. So I'm assuming they'll be transferring over to this as well. But it can be anything from, you know, simple engineering capability for mentoring, but a lot of it is just time management. You know, if they have an adult there that just helps them put together a clear path for what needs to be done, to really be successful in an 8-week period. That's a great mentorship help for any team.
So that's great. I love that. I'm just wondering though, when you think about some schools are a lot more well-resourced than others, and the students may not have had the academic background that other schools may have had in terms of reaching this level and being able to participate. How are they brought up to speed, or what kind of work and support is provided to those schools that may not have the resources to, I mean, I know you said you all provide coaches, but that could be remote. I mean, these students could be in other states since you're expanding.
Yeah.
How do we bring them up to speed? I want to make sure that we understand that students are not left behind just because of the situation of the conditions of where they come from.
No, that's a great point to make. And we are trying to address that. A couple of things. So we have a Microsoft Teams site that we use during the competition, or during those 8 weeks. We did it during the phase 1. So we have a session every week called Ask an Engineer. So they can log on to that. It's usually at 4 o'clock on a Monday. They log into that, and whatever questions they have, whether it's technical or administrative, they ask us, and we have a core group of engineers that have been, just vital to this whole development, and they answer technical questions. We also provided some videos for them to learn about aerodynamics, about 3D printing, for that very point, Sharon, like to try to help the teams that just really are just ramping up on getting into this whole realm.
Right. That's great. And before I leave this slide, you've got some dates down at the bottom. What's the importance of those dates and who attends? And are those in-person sessions, or tell me about those? So
this is our first year that we're actually going to do 2 cities. We've opened up to go to Austin. In the past, it's always been just right here in Dallas-Fort Worth area. So this would be the dates when the actual competition takes place. So like I said, we kick it off on September 25th, and they have those 8 weeks to get ready and do practicing and everything. But on November 6th in Austin, there will be 20 teams that will be taking on the competition down in Austin. And we're still finalizing the location. We've got 3 different locations that we're trying to hone in on. Then the following weekend is going to be a 2-day back-to-back event. So on Friday the 12th, there'll be the next 20 teams will participate. And then on Saturday, another round of the next 20 teams. And then we'll have 3 rounds. Whoever the top 3 teams were from those 3 events, those will get to go on to the championship round on December 4th. So really excited. We haven't done that before, where we have a championship round, but we'll get to see the best of the best. And we're hoping to actually have that on campus at Bell and use that as a focus point for them to see how cool it is to come work for an aerospace company. So
that is so cool. Well, in closing, let's just kind of share with the group. So as my slide advances, there we go. Let's share with our audience what's coming up in terms of the future. What do you got planned for next year?
Yeah, so back like we mentioned, we're expanding, kind of trying to double each year. So for next year, and by the way, if anyone's interested in this year, we are actually full for the 60 teams that we were kind of limiting to. But next year we'll have 100 teams that we're opening up to. And to do that, we're going to basically go on the road trip, and the events will be in 5 different cities. We're always going to start it off in Austin. Then we'll have the second week will be in the DFW area, along with at the same time, there will be another city doing the competition on that same weekend. And then the following weekend, we'll have 2 other cities. There was a mention earlier about Canada, and we are definitely targeting Canada. I know they've got a number of really cool through the National Research Center. They're really pursuing a lot of STEM for Canada, and we're hoping to engage with that as one of the cities next year. And then again, we'll have the championship round back in Dallas.
Well, this is great. I love this. And so as we wrap up here, we will definitely drop your link, your contact information in the chat, as well as earlier we spoke about a video that's available. We will put the link for that in there also. And with that, Maggie, we're happy to take any questions, or if
Yeah,
not.
there is a couple. One of the questions, was from Rick Yates, basically having some time, to help. How do you, if you're not, within those companies for like Ask an Engineer, how do you get involved as a volunteer to maybe help a team or, be there for the event? Because it takes it takes a village to put something like this on. And that was one of the questions. And then the other question is how to contact one of them, the Fletcher was asking about, did you ever consider New England or the East Coast? And then also, how does he access the engineer? And obviously you had pointed out that the contact information will be in the chat and also on our website, the northtexasuas.com. But it looks like the main thing is if you are somebody that is interested, whether you're a teacher and you just want to be out there to volunteer, or just somebody that's truly interested in, the UAS industry, is there a way of volunteering, Ron?
Yeah, so I would say to start with, you can go ahead and contact me directly. We do register all of the mentors on the REC Foundation website. So they could go to that. That would be another place just to get more familiar with competition. Go to REC Foundation, just Google that. It'll show you the website, and you can click on there, the Bell competition, and you'll be able to see the details of the competition for this year. But then again, if you want to be a mentor, I can connect you with them and they'll register you as a mentor.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And Sharon, if you want to close with that, we'll move on to Evan Morelli, who again has always been a part of our workshop on safe practices, and he always has a wealth of information. Ron, thank you so much again. So excited. I'm looking forward to, everything opening up so that we can meet and then not have to worry about the COVID and the pandemic. So I think that is exciting for everyone. So I appreciate that. Go ahead, Sharon.
Thank you.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. Thanks, Ron, for sharing the information and for your time this morning. And I started dropping information in the chat, and I'll finish while Evan gets going. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ron. Just real quick, just wanted to let everyone know these programs and the present presentations that we've had so far, great information, wonderful speakers, great programs, things that we need we need feedback, and this is why we put in a link for a survey. Please, I implore you to fill that out, because I read those individually, and every time we do a workshop, we improve. If there's something specifically you want us to bring up or talk about, please put it in the survey too. And we've got some wonderful sponsors too, and I'll mention that afterwards. I first want to introduce again Evan Morelli, who has been so informative and just a wealth of information. So welcome again, Evan. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Maggie. Can y'all hear the blowing behind me?
No, I can't.
Okay,
hear
good. There's
only from your own lungs.
Yeah, there's a long crew behind me. I didn't want to head up. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. All right. Hello, my name is Evan Morelli. Can y'all see my presentation? All right.
So, yeah, it looks great. Thank you.
I am a drone operator, 107 certified. I own a company called Elm Aerial Services LLC. I also have been working for years now with Maggie, doing various projects to do in the UAV industry. And today we're going to talk about specifically like safe practices. How do we operate with drones? What are some things we need to look out for? And also contextualize that with racing and the region that is putting on this workshop, which is the North Central Texas Council of Governance. So the DFW Metroplex airspace is a complex layer cake, right? The genius start off by understanding that we have A, B, C, D, or A, B, C, E, D, A airspaces that we need to figure out whether or not it's controlled, uncontrolled. E and G are uncontrolled. A, B, C, D are controlled. You won't be flying in eggs. That's for commercial flights. But when you want to select a place to actually operate, you need to determine whether or not that specific location, and sometimes, especially in like a highly urban area like this, it can matter like one side of the street versus another, whether or not you are in controlled or uncontrolled airspace. So this is a picture of the DFW airspace area, and it's like, oh my God, whether I want to do recreationally or professionally, how do I figure out? I mean, yeah, I can use my GPS map and, look for where I am, but how can I specifically know exactly what are the conditions I need to satisfy to operate a UAV in this area? And the FAA has done a really good job of separating these things into what's called grids. Now on the FAA website, they actually publish this GIS version of their standard maps. Now these are not updated super frequently, but they are a good reference tool. And now if you'll notice that some of these, essentially they break the airspace up into grids, right? If you operate in one grid, it's going to have similar or different, depending upon where you are, rules and regulations than if you are in uncontrolled airspace, right? So you notice that some of these are green and some of these are red. The green ones are LANC enabled, which means that you can digitally request authorization. The red ones are not LANC enabled. LANC enabling is the easiest way. You'll get in like 15, 20 seconds, you'll get a response on your request to access authorized airspace. But on non-LANC enabled areas, you need to go to the drone zone, submit a authorization request. It's done with a whole paper, like submission with a bunch of that I'll cover later. And that doesn't get back quite as fast. So, but that doesn't really help you. I mean, that'll give you a basis reference when you're working with a flight that you're going to be doing maybe in a couple days or a couple weeks or what have you, but that doesn't help you in knowing if there's any TFRs, temporary flight restrictions, that day right then and there. And so from that, let's see, where's the air map? Oh, I need to go to air map. So when you want to plan a flight, Air Map I use this app every day when I go flying. I do flying for roof inspection quite a bit. And it's really great for logging your flights and keeping track of your flights. But additionally, it's also really good for knowing like specifically where there's a temporary flight restriction. And if you'll notice right here, this is actually Jay's group, the Dallas Drone Racing. So you can see that they have their special classification right here. Now, can anybody possibly tell me what they think this red circle is? Let me pull up the chat. If I can pull up the chat. Maggie, are they guessing? I can't see. Well, that is George W. Bush's house. And if you click that grid, it says TFR.
Jay was the one that said it, Bush. So Jay was on top of it.
So it's a temporary flight restriction for VIP movement. That is one that expires and gets reintroduced continuously. So essentially it's permanent, but it does have a small expiry date. But that's something that you got to know if there's going to be a TFR for something like that. That airspace is supposed to not be accessible. I mean, it says there's somebody flying here.
Yeah, just so you know, like when I live in Fort Worth downtown, and when there's the TCU football game going on, there is just a temporary restriction on that airspace. So
right.
So you really do have to to look at that before you fly, whatever you do.
Right, exactly. And when you're specifically with stadiums, they could be good to fly on when there's not an event. Or and it doesn't have to be a football game. It could be like a concert or any large gathering of people can trigger that. But yeah, so you can click on every single individual grid that you're in, and you'll notice too, like if you really zoom in here, if I'm on, one side of the street, I'm in this grid, and if I'm on the other side of the street, I'm in that grid. And then that might help you a whole lot when you're flying in between two controlled airspaces. But if you're flying between uncontrolled and controlled airspace, this house is split down the middle to be controlled and uncontrolled airspace, right? So you got to think about like where exactly I'm going to be flying. So it gives you that granularity that you're going to need to be able to operate So in the context of what we're doing here with the North Central Texas, we're going to talk about hobby flying and how it interacts with DFW. So what is hobby flying versus 107, and where do the definitions lie? So the aircraft is flown for strictly recreational purposes, and that may seem like obvious. Recreational flying is if you are doing it for nothing but the gratification or the enjoyment of flying a drone in and of itself. If you are doing any kind of flying, whether that's posting to social media for some kind of equity gain, right? Or if that's for doing a service to somebody's land or for their company or what have you, that does not count as hobbyist flying, right? So you have to really kind of separate yourself from that. That being said, there are a lot of similarities, right, between 107 flying and recreational flying. And that has to do with visual line of sight, yielding to manned aircraft. You have the same airspace restrictions as far as getting access to authorized airspace versus uncontrolled airspace. There's a test that you have to take, a licensing test, and it must be registered and marked. So those are very common. So it doesn't matter what kind of flying you're doing, like those are some fundamental things that you need to either manage yourself with or have on the onset. The difference is hobby flying with the new rules that have been passed in December of last year have shown that they're going to be limiting a lot of hobby flying to, as they mentioned earlier, CBOs, community-based organizations. And you can look up the actual 44809 is in the announcement from the FAA if you want to look into like just the specific language. This is most of the language anyways. So it has not gone into effect yet, right? But as Jay mentioned earlier, when you're trying to find a place to go fly, you need to look at the local municipalities' rules, because yes, they don't get to judge what can or can't enter their airspace, but they can judge who can and can't enter their property, right? So, some of it kind of layer cakes in a way like that. So groups may apply to become a CBO. As far as with tax purposes, if you're going to go for more than just a group, but actually have like if you're an AMA field and you want to actually like have a whole business there, you follow the 501c3 guidelines. So you become a nonprofit, and you can provide the purpose of it is to be the facilitator of comprehensive set of safety rules and programming for enabling active, sustained, and with these new rules that have changed, beyond visual line of sight flights. Okay, so yes, we have the line of sight requirements, but you have to have rules that also accommodate the beyond visual line of sight. And
So Evan, in that respect, with Kyle's drone soccer, if it's inside, that doesn't apply. But if the activity is outside, then like if we wanted to have a program here in Texas with the drone soccer and we were going to put it outside, does that mean that there would be a requirement of doing a 5013C? And Kyle, join in if you have any suggestions too, but I was just wondering how that would apply.
So yeah, if you are not out, if you are inside, you are not in national airspace. These rules are different. Okay, these are if you are outside entering the national airspace, right? Because that changes definitions. Once you are outside, you are federally regulated by the FAA. Inside, not, right? Nearly as much.
And I would add that, sheltered provision is anytime you're inside a net and you're not outside, like you mentioned. And then there's also a weight restriction of 250 grams. So with new FAA rules, anything above that needs to be registered. That's why drone soccer and micro drone racing all are well below those limits. So schools can participate without concern.
That's good to know. Thank you. I appreciate that input.
So with that, that's some sort of the specifics that will separate hobby flying from 107. Typically, really, it just has to do with where you can fly. If you're 107 flying and you're doing a job, you're not going to be obviously limited to CBOs because you need to go to your on-site to conduct your job. But CBOs are going to be the new forum, and they're going to, once the rule goes into effect, which I don't remember exactly when, it'll be within 180 days. Organizations can apply to become CBOs, and I don't think they've talked about doing another like period of registration for CBOs, but I would definitely look for that to find. And AMA fields are going to become that quite a bit. So that's something that you really want to look for if you want to practice or don't just do it in your backyard. That's not the safest way. Probably will annoy your neighbors too. Look for a structured place with resources to learn. As Jay mentioned, it is a steep learning curve. I've done racing drones before too. You'll crash a ton. Things will not work. Having people there is also a really great tool because they've probably had the same problems you've had a million times and know exactly what to do.
And I think that Jay mentioned in the beginning, just don't go to a park. I mean, national parks, they don't have, there's a lot of rules about going to like a national park to even fly. But just the regular parks, like Jay had said, and you've mentioned, I mean, you have to do your research to make sure that you can apply, and you can go and fly those particular areas, correct?
Right. Yeah. And anecdotally, I did a lot of practice over by Joe Pool Lake, which is over here in DFW. And it says that you can't fly drones, but I went and talked to the actual park administration and they gave me permission to do it. And that can happen a lot too. There's people that work in that particular area and they give you permission and they are the authority, like you can still get access to fly in areas you may not think. Just go talk to people. The less shady or like the more communication you have, usually the better. You seem like you're more legit, and people aren't so suspicious, right? That's something that us in the drone industry, we fight all the time is people think that we're going to be looking into other people's like house inside their windows. And in reality, that's not what 99% of drone pilots want to do. They just want to fly either recreationally or fly for work. So, anytime that we're a pilot and then we're out either as hobbyist or 107, we are a liaison for this emerging industry. So it's incumbent upon us to really be the example.
Yeah, and one of the rules about not flying over people is still very, very important. But can you mention about the wildlife in parks and such?
Yeah, I'll get to the specific about Texas. I have that slide later on. Okay, so we'll talk about operating under 107. So this is now the 107 side of it that you'll see some overlap between the hobbyist and the 107. So you must remain visual line of sight. You're subject to weather visibility limitations, same as hobbyists. If you don't have the 3 nautical miles, you're still gonna have a problem because that is what is managing the visual line of sight. There's 4 conditions that you have to have when doing visual line of sight to satisfy that rule, and that's altitude, attitude, velocity, and direction. Okay, so you need to know like how much it's pivoting, how much your aircraft is pivoting, which direction it's going, how fast it's going, and how high up it is. If you can determine those 4 things, you can satisfy visual line of sight because that'll give you overall positioning of your drone so you know whether it's going to actually hit something. And then, night flying is something that's going to be coming in. It's very difficult to get a night flying waiver. I don't think there's been a whole lot, if any, that have been given, but that's going to be coming in. You're still going to be subject to those 4 crucial indicators, usually doing through strobes or indicator lights and such. But visual line of sight, you got to think about how can I maintain this this rule. If you're going around a bunch of different obstacles with racing, or you're racing inside and outside of a building, as if you look at like freestyle pilots, they go in and out of parking garages and stuff quite a bit. How can I make sure that I'm still maintaining visual line of sight, even if I'm, on the 2nd floor of a parking garage and I fly up to the roof? So that's something you got to think about. Spatial restrictions, this is a whole lot, but essentially what it is saying here is, just like with hobbyists, you got to yield to other aircraft. You are in an unmanned aircraft, which means that if you crash, it's unfortunate, but it's just money. If a manned aircraft crashes, somebody's going to get hurt or killed, right? So given a choice, you are always, even if they're in the wrong, you are always to yield, which I think makes sense. The 3 miles of weather visibility, that's important. So, if you're out on a day where it's cloudy or it's misty, kind of like the weather we've been having in North Texas lately, some of those days you could fly, but the visibility is too poor, right? Maximum altitude of 400 feet above ground level. It takes extra authorization to get above 400 feet. I can't imagine why you would need to fly above 400 feet. Most of the racing drones don't need to be up there. And I have never done a job that needed to be over 400 feet unless it was off like a high-rise building, right? That's different. So 400 feet, keep it below. 100 feet's a lot. Maximum ground speed of 100 miles per hour. That's one of those things I would love to hear Jay's input on, about how they're able to manage the 100 mile per hour. Because I know those drones, they're pretty crazy fast. And I guess it's really the turns. They don't get to top speed while they're racing.
Specifically to that, what we do is we keep it away from us. We have like a 75-foot distance requirement that we keep from our flight line to where anybody's going to be. And anybody that makes high-speed passes, I mean, obviously we're not able to put a radar gun on it, but you can tell when somebody's screaming by. We call them out, pull them aside. You know, again, we're trying to have a safe environment. So yeah, we don't allow it. And if we see it, we discourage it and pull them aside. Actually, if you've seen any of the major competitions, some of the guys that are doing really well, adrenaline's pumping, they do some kind of freestyle celebration maneuver, and last multi-GP championship, a guy got disqualified for that. So that's just another one of those scenarios where it would be covered in the safety talk or the pilot briefing beforehand, but it's also something that you need to be aware of and educate yourself on as well.
Right. And correct, back me up on this. You can outfly your drone immediately, right out of range. Those things are fast, and you can lose your connection immediately.
Yeah. I mean, it is. We talk about latency. You're using video to pilot your craft. Any amount of latency whatsoever, and your drone is, out of sight, it's gone. So yeah, that again. And when it comes to racing, we're on a soccer field, basically. We're not going far. I actually discourage a lot of that, a lot of the long range flying, because there's just so many things that you have to do to be within compliance. So, specifically to racing, we keep it pretty much just right in front of us and down low, and speed is relative.
Right. So yeah, it is a lot to manage. It definitely is. And your spatial restrictions take a lot of planning before, during, and really kind of after as well, to make sure that you're creating a safe environment where you can really get the performance that you want out of these drones, but not increase risk, or you make yourself have an unsafe environment. So we'll talk about personnel restrictions. As Jay mentioned earlier too, if you're flying FPV, you got to have a spotter, right? Because you cannot satisfy your visual line of sight requirements without one. Flat out. You need to have one aircraft per pilot in command, right? No operations from a moving aircraft, no careless or reckless operation, no carriage of hazardous material. And if you're going to go fly one of these really fast dynamic drones, you can't do it in an urban area. There's no way you're going to be able to avoid violating the flying over people condition for flying. Where they have over by Sandy Lake, that's like off the highway. There's like nothing there, right? There's a bunch of water retention ponds, and that's pretty much it. And then other soccer fields, right? They are far, far away from any kind of like strip mall or anything like that could possibly cause them to be, inadvertently flying over people. So as Maggie alluded to earlier, when you're looking for a spot specifically in Texas, the airspace is managed by the FAA's federal airspace. But again, state and local laws can apply depending upon where you are. So for instance, the federal government doesn't make rules about state parks as far as flying, but the state can make rules about state parks as far as flying. And that's something that you see here. And I know this is a lot, so I'm going to hold this up here for a second. And if you want to review to read it, but you can find this with Secretary of State pretty easily. But the big thing you got to look at here is in Texas, the law permits the telecommunications provider to use UAS to capture image. That is something that's not guaranteed by the FAA, but something that we do here in Texas is we enable people to fly for inspection of telecommunications poles. But we, at the same time, we restrict the use of drones over correctional and detention facilities, right? But additionally, the laws prohibit governments from regulating UASs except for during special events. So if you are like, we can keep you out of the park, but like, for instance, if you're flying from your house, like your property, they can't stop you from flying over. If you're like live right behind a park or something like that, like they cannot tell you to pull it out of the air if you are landing and going from your property, right? Unless it's a special event located, such as Maggie talked about earlier with TCU, and they do a football game. So you also cannot fly a drone when it comes to wildlife, right? You cannot hunt, you cannot track wildlife with a drone. That's something we explicitly don't do, but I know that is allowed in other states, right? So you'll see some state by state differences. And additionally, any state park, you are not allowed to fly drones in unless you get explicit permission for that individual time. And there's Lake Whitney and San Angelo that have two parks that have decided to allow that. So that's something that's different. Like you can't just go to like Cedar Hill State Park and just fly because it's a state park, even though that's from an airspace standpoint, a pretty easy place to go fly.
Right. And even if it's not restricted, you still need to contact the park to see if it's, if there's a migration or, a time where there's a lot more wildlife activity. Fletcher in the questions asked specifically, because we were just talking about where you could fly. Hold on, let me get to the chat really quick. Sorry. Fletcher was asking, as a Part 107 operator, do I need a COA to fly for government entities as a contractor?
I believe we talked about that in a previous workshop where you had that in. I would definitely reference that I'm not a government contract operating expert, but I think the answer is yes. But
I think it is too. If you are acting as state, local government, just like the police officers, the firemen, or whatever, you still need to. You can still fly even without a 107 if you're under the COA.
Yeah, because I believe that the COA has to do with getting access to airspace that normally be restricted because of an emergency, but because you have the COA, right, you can fly, like it's to get access to that emergency airspace. It's so you are kind of separated from like a 107 pilot maybe trying to get news footage, and instead you're part of the operation.
Yeah, that's a good example
to
too.
the emergency. So I believe that's the case. If you look back again at our videos where we talked about that, there is enormous amounts of detail if you're looking for information on that.
Yeah, and we've got about 3 minutes. So again, wrapping it up, Evan, can you, you've covered a lot, especially with the FPV being so popular now. Is there some things that you really want to point out so that our viewers and again, ask questions?
With my last few minutes, I definitely want to talk about the thing that I think is the unseen hazard, like something I harp on quite a bit, but it's battery maintenance. Knowing about if you're flying FPV drones, you do not have off-the-shelf batteries. You have these like naked batteries that are just the layer cake cells in and of themselves. And if they're not treated right, and they do go up, and I'm sure Jay can attest to this, we have, battery fires do happen. You use them and you really kind of abuse them with racing for sure. And they have very limited life. And it could be something, if you don't know what you're doing with them, that can cause potentially like your house to burn down. Like it really can be that dangerous. So I wanted to go over a little basics real quick in my little TLDR of this. I know I have like 1 minute. The batteries go between 4.2 volts and 3.8 volts. If you overcharge them, you run the risk of them igniting. When you are charging them with drone batteries, you are using a balancer. right? So you need to make sure that you're not overcharging them, and you do not leave them charged in long-term storage. You want to bring them down to a storage mode. There's some debate about what that voltage is, but that's between 3.75 volts per cell and 3.8 volts. And each cell, you'll have 6S batteries, 4S batteries. That means 4 cells or 6 cells. The battery has memory. So over time, you will get less and less performance out of it, especially if you overcharge it, which is done in drone racing, where you push it past the 4.2 volts, right? Making it a little less unstable, but you get that right out the gate. You get a whole bunch of discharge. So you get a lot of power right at the beginning of the battery. And cold performance, you got to understand that these batteries, if they're left like in your garage and it's winter and you plug them in and get ready to go, after you charge them, like they're going to be cold, you're going to get reduced performance from them. You know, it's really important that you monitor how many cycles you have worked with these batteries, because each cycle is going to work down the lifespan. And keep in mind, you will consume batteries. They are you may recharge them a bunch of times, but you will use them and then you will be done with them. And you can go to Home Depot. You got to check with your local Home Depot or the one around you, but they do take LiPo batteries for proper disposal. And that's where I take my batteries, and they just drop them off, and that's their thing. They have a program for battery disposal. So, you know, you can't just throw them in your garbage. Don't just do that. I know a lot of people, they puncture their batteries to get rid of them and take all the electricity out and then throw away the trash. But I just take mine to Home Depot. And so I know my time's up, but I wanted to get that part in right there.
No, and I think that that's really important. This is why I just love this workshop today, because all 3 programs teach the principles of safety. And so if we get participants, whether they're the youth or adults, when you get involved with clubs like Jay's and or get in a program like Bell or Kyle, the drone soccer, that kind of information is shared, and the networking and the understanding is so important. So you're not just doing this alone, you're doing it in a community. And I think wrapping this whole segment is about, you know, this drone community, this UAS, you know, safe practices, but also engaging and getting involved and making it fun, but making it safe. So I really appreciate everything you've done. It doesn't look like there's questions in the chat. I do want to thank our sponsors, because if we didn't have, number one, our North Central Texas Council of Governments, the whole idea about having these Know Before You Fly Your Drone workshops. Thank you so much for this. And then, of course, every month, Ernest, if you want to speak on behalf of that, every month there is a task force meeting where opportunities like this, a platform where everyone can talk on what's going on in not just the region, country, and the world. Sharon Rossmark, Women in Drones, is a great organization to be involved in, to keep up with what's going on in the industry too. So just kind of want to, AUVSI Lone Star chapter is one of our sponsors. It's a really strong. Adrian Doko is the president here. He's very, very strong in the UAS, and it's Association of Unmanned Vehicle Systems International. So it's not just drones, but obviously this is our drone workshop, so we're going to talk about that. Drone Plus is a retail store in Frisco, and they do repairs, and they also sell drones. And they're another one that anytime you do have a question on you know, depending on how you're going to apply with your drones, what you're going to do with your drones, whether it's work related or recreational, they're a great resource of asking what's out there, and also for repairs. Les Pen is one of our sponsors too. They have this amazing pen that cleans the lenses off of your drone. So I think that they're another one that we just love to have. Fox Fury is a drone light solution. Well, they have light solutions for a lot of things, first responders and such, but just again, for the drones, they've actually designed specific lights for the DJI and the Autel, and they have big spotlights to just little ones so that you can fly at night, the LEDs. Then Chariot is another one of our sponsors. They have a service and solution-based company here in the North Texas region. And then HAF. half is based in Dallas. They started in 1950. They were a one-man consulting firm, and now they're one of the largest engineering companies here in the Southwest. So I want to thank all of our sponsors today, and a special thanks to our presenters, Jay, Kyle, Ron. Thank you so much. And of course, we love having Sharon and Evan with their segment. It's just been a wonderful program. Next month, we are going to be talking about Interdrone, because guess what? Dallas-Fort Worth is the host. So we've got a lot of things going on, and I want everyone to know what's going on with all the different activities there. One of the activities specifically is Career Connect, and we're connecting companies with talent. So there's a lot to talk about. That was going to be July 10th. We're going to push it back because July 4th, obviously, most people are out doing some things with family. So we don't want to take that away. So July 10th, put it on your calendar. Please join us. Please spread the word about these workshops. They're free. It's about networking. It's about communication. It's about giving the image of UAS as a friendly, educational, our future, not something threatening, but something engaging and helping our community with our everyday living. So is there anything else that we want to talk about? Ernest, did you want to chime in at all? If not, I'm going to close this up, and thank you guys again for taking this time on your Saturday morning. No?
Nope, great job,
Bye,
guys.
Well,
Thank
thank you again. Bye, Kyle,
everybody.
Sharon, Evan. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Ron, thank you. All right. Have a good evening. Have a good weekend, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.